This is the Freeheel Life Podcast, episode number 101. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And welcome back to Monday, my friends. I hope you're having a fantastic morning. And I almost didn't know what to say when I said 101. It's a little bit of a different cadence to the way you roll the triple digits off the tongue there. But glad to be back. Hope everybody had a great weekend, and hope everyone's starting to think about going skiing. It's nice to kind of be that time of the year. Fall's great, and getting through Halloween's always kind of a good marker for leading into the season. Starting to think about Thanksgiving, when a lot of places are going to be opening around the United States. And usually this is the month we're all kind of starting to watch the backcountry and make sure it comes in nice and correctly, so to speak, so that we don't end up with a bad situation through the entire year. But with that said, it's that time of the year, and hopefully you are all thinking about the good stuff. So hopping into newsroom and notes, having a little bit of snow here in Salt Lake obviously got people ready to go coming into the shop, and we wanted to thank you for a fantastic October. We had a record month, and as always, we could not do this without all of you Freeheel lifers out there helping pass the word along, telling people to come by the shop, shopping from afar, online, calling in with questions. And it's just such a great way to start the year, and we're super excited. So it's nice to have that October under our belts, and kind of, as we're coming back online and bringing all the crew back and kind of refreshing our brains and learning any of the new equipment that's come out. It's great to know that you guys are all there with us. So thank you so much. And the only other thing that's kind of popping up on the radar, I brought up a few weeks ago, Tully, Colorado film tour is going to be happening. Those guys are kicking it off on, well, I guess if you don't know who Telemark, Colorado is, they're an awesome group of guys, and they do a bunch of different stuff, gatherings, après ski events. They've done some film premieres. They've got a King and Queen of the Heel, which is kind of a video competition. If you don't know who they are, check them out. Worth mentioning, before I just start spouting off that they're doing a film tour. So definitely go check out their website and see what they're up to. But they're going to be doing a film tour this fall. It's 4 short films that are included in the tour. So it's Future Freeheel 2 with Ty Dayberry, King of the Lurk, Why Not, which is Telly Colorado's movie they put together, and also submissions from local members of the Telly tribe. So I'm sure there's some submission details for getting involved with that at the local stops. But yeah, it's really cool to see. I've kind of said, haven't done movies, and I haven't put out a Telemark movie myself since 2013, so it's been many moons, but it does get me kind of hyped when I see people putting together tour dates, and some of the spots they're even going are spots that I've shown stuff in the past, which is cool. So it's cool to see that some of these things live on. But I think the most important thing about this is kind of that community aspect that they're also bringing to it, where it's people locally have the ability to put stuff together and come show it locally. And I think that's really cool. There used to be some really cool stuff like that kind of in the early 2000s on the East Coast. New England Telemark, NET, was an organization back then that actually put on a kind of a Telly film festival up in Bowdoin College. I believe that's Brunswick, Maine, if I remember right. But that was actually where we showed our first Lipstick movie, and we had toured all the way out there, But I remember thinking how cool it was because there was all these different local contingents that were kind of putting together, their own little videos. And, it was probably around 2000. That was probably 2006. So imagine that YouTube had only been out for a year, right? YouTube came out in 2005. So it was cool back then because it was kind of the first opportunity people were having to put together their own stuff and show it. And I think what's cool with what Tele Colorado is doing is it really kind of harkens back to that community sharing and kind of creating these almost like a little Tele short film festival. I think that's really important. Gives people the opportunity to kind of get it out in front of people and build those local communities. And we all know that's how Tele grows. If you got a strong Tele community locally, there's gear available, there's a high level of stoke, and somebody to share a nice bevy with after, or just someone to go shred with. These are all these little things that add up big. So shout out to Tele Colorado for taking these more maybe well-known shorts out, but also adding in those local flavors as well. So they're kicking it off in Denver on November 12th at River North Brewery. Looks like then they're going to be heading up to Frisco, Colorado on the 14th. Minturn, Colorado on the 17th at old Kirby Cosmos. Actually used to show my movies at old Kirby Cosmos, so I like seeing that. That's cool. And then they're heading out our way, Salt Lake City, Utah on the 18th. There's an all ages show at the Freeheel Life Shop. Then on the 19th, Shades Brewing. And then they're heading up to Driggs on the 20th at the 22 Designs headquarters. And looks like they've got some TBD dates, but they are heading up into Missoula, Bozeman, and looks like they might even try to hit the Midwest. So help them out. I'm sure they're looking for venues to show stuff and kind of fill in the gaps. I remember going on tour many times, and filling in those gaps all comes down to the locals and finding a good spot. And I think they're equipped to basically put on a show wherever. So if you got a space, I'm sure they're down to show the movies and bring all the people. So I'll look forward to seeing that when it comes through Salt Lake, and I can't wait. So what I want to talk about a little bit today was, I mentioned, opening days coming up for a lot of us, usually Thanksgiving, getting into that early December is when we start getting on the hill. And it kind of, it got me thinking, like, what do I start thinking about this time of year? And usually it's kind of what are my essentials before opening day. And so today I kind of wanted to share that, my 5 essentials before opening day, what I do to get prepared for that first day on the hill, and then kind of how I use that to sort of get me prepared for the upcoming season, knowing, okay, cool, I'm going to be spending this much time in the mountains. These are the types of skiing I'm going to do, and just kind of hopefully kind of get your brain turning a little bit about maybe different ways to approach that first day to kind of set the pace for your upcoming season. So you have a great season, and you get to the end of it and you feel pretty satisfied with what you were able to accomplish. All right. So the very, very first thing I start thinking about in terms of essentials, getting ready for opening day, are number 1, are my boots squared away? And I wanted to bring this up because boots are an interesting one. I'm a busy guy. I got a lot of stuff going on. I can't tell you how many times it comes to opening day and I haven't really looked at my boots. And I hate to say that, but it happens, like I pull them off the shelf. All of a sudden I'm like going skiing and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I forgot about that. And so I'm trying to make it more of a habit to get my boots squared away before opening day, because really it is truly an essential. And I feel like it's the number one thing, because if my boots suck, I'm going to have a bad day. It's not going to be comfortable. It's just not going to be enjoyable. I'm going to be thinking about my feet and all the things that aren't working correctly. And so the very first thing I always do with my boots to kind of get them tidied up is I want to make sure, to kind of give them a once over, but then I always want to check my liners. So, I'm obviously talking plastic boots with a thermo-moldable liner. And, I feel like that's pretty standard at this point. Most all of you are going to have some sort of moldable liner. But one thing I always like to do is make sure the boots I'm skiing are molded. I like to mold my boots, not everybody does. Some people like to ski into them. I like to mold them. I do use a footbed, So those are the first things I'm going to check are, do I feel like am I confident the mold's good? I mean, that mold's is going to hold shape for quite a number of days. So, unless you're skiing like 100 plus days a year, your liners are going to hold up pretty well. A lot of people don't realize you can remold your liners multiple times. And, so if something's not feeling right, come into the shop, or there are some ways to do it at home. You got to be a little careful if you're doing a home mold in the oven. It's you might overbake your liners and be a little unhappy with the crispiness of them. So that's the first thing. I make sure my footbeds are good. They're cut properly. They're in my liners. My liners are shaped correctly to the way that I want them to feel on my feet. And basically that's the very, very, very first thing that I'm going to look at and make any adjustments that I need to. Then as far as like going over the rest of the boot, I like to always start at the bottom and inspect the soles. Make sure the soles are holding up. There's no kind of strange peeling of the Vibram sole coming off the plastic, or maybe weird chunks of plastic that, maybe the ski hit the boot, in an odd way. Just kind of do a simple cleanup of that. Make sure my boots are clean, and go through that whole process. And then basically I'm going to kind of go from bottom up, and I'm going to kind of work my way. I want to inspect the bellows. So for those of you that don't know what the bellow is, it's kind of that literally like a bellow looking part where the ball of your foot articulates. It's really good to inspect those. Look at the creases. Make sure you haven't nicked a hole in them with the edge of the ski. If some materials come off, it's not a huge deal, but it is something to keep aware of, especially if you catch the ski edge right kind of on the crease. It can start to cause a hole at some point, and eventually, water's going to get in there, and you want to make sure to just kind of keep tabs on those. As boots get older and older, that's a big part, especially on the inside of the bellow. Where your inside edge of your skis constantly going back and forth, that can be a common issue. So just good to keep tabs on bellows and how they're holding up. So once I've kind of gone through the soles, the bellows, I really want to start kind of working through the buckles. And this is one thing is putting on the boots, making sure they feel good, and then checking all the buckles. And I go top to bottom personally. I usually start with my power strap on the top, kind of pull everything together, and then I start working through the buckles. Now, the reason I like to go through the buckles before opening day this is one of those common things that, into season, the previous season, I've had some funny things happen, like the buckle breaks on the last day, or, something, one of the latches comes off, or something's not working on the power strap. I can't explain how many times something's happened the previous season, and then, you get busy, you're doing spring stuff, and, boots get set aside. And this is exactly why, I think it's always crucial. Pull your boots out, and go through each of the buckles, because buckles especially, they're pretty lightweight. They can get bent very easily, especially if you're not storing them correctly, or maybe you threw them in your truck, or, whatever. So it's really good to make sure like nothing's bent out of place and everything's operating correctly. So I go through all the buckles, kind of scope those out, make sure everything's good, check my ski walk feature, make sure that's operating, and then put both my boots on and walk around for a little bit, make sure they feel comfortable, and kind of imagine myself going out on that first day. Hey, are these comfortable? Does everything work properly? Am I ready to go? And that's kind of my boot, how to get my boots squared away before day one. I do always kind of, and I'll get into, you guys all know I love my leather boots. Usually this is the time of year, I'll pull my leather boots out. It's kind of a ritual of mine. I'll polish them up, get some nice black shoe polish, and polish those boots up, and make sure I put some mink oil on them. That's kind of my go-to waterproofing and just sort of leather conditioner. And especially with those old boots, you gotta keep them well conditioned, otherwise they start cracking and falling apart on you. So, but if you treat them right, they'll last a really long time. So, and as far as those leather boots, I same thing. I'm going through the soles, especially on vintage boots, because I know I'm going to use them probably in the early season a little bit. Lots of inspection in terms of the sole lamination, making sure nothing's peeling, and making sure nothing's too scuffed up to where there's water getting inside. So that's kind of my overview with the boots and kind of everything I'm looking at before day one on the boots. Okay, so number 2 essential, now that I've kind of started with the boots, because I feel like that's like my number one starting point, what's going to get me on the hill and help me have a comfortable day. My number 2 is making a list of things I want to work on. And the reason I like to do this before opening day is, life gets away from you, unless you're skiing literally every day, which most of us are not. It's good to have kind of a list of things to work on. And, I spend a lot of my time free skiing. When I do go skiing, it isn't like I'm sitting there drilling, but I like to make this list ahead of time in order to kind of look at what I may want to work on throughout the season, especially knowing, okay, I'm going to have this amount of time on the mountain, and there's little things that I can kind of put into my ski routine to kind of work on and focus on. And it's just something in the back of my head, and maybe make a little written list, honestly, and keep it in your back pocket, or keep it in your ski jacket or something like that, something to refer back to, or on your phone, making a note, something of that sort. So, one thing that, I was going to use a past example. I was talking about my leather boots. Many years ago, I basically wanted to, that particular year, I wanted to improve upon just vintage technique, for instance. So that was something I wanted to work on. And so I kind of made it a goal that I was going to do my first 30 calendar days on leather. So it wasn't like 30, I wasn't skiing like, I'm going to ski 30 consecutive days on leather or something like that. I just said, hey, the very first month I'm going to go out, the snow's starting to fill in, I'm not missing some crazy powder day or something like that. And I did a little thing called 30 days of leather. And that was something I wanted to work on, was like vintage technique. And, early season's great because the snow's not usually phenomenal. Most of the time it's filling in, you're getting groomers. And this was a really slow down pace of just, hey, I'm taking out some 210s and some leather low cuff boots, and I'm just going to cruise. And I learned a lot that year just about pressuring the ball on my foot, for instance, or hip positioning and transitioning between turns. And it's what's great about something like that is it was nice because I remember thinking, hey, this is something that I can kind of get down with. I might not be skiing like bell to bell, but if I go up for a couple hours in the morning, this is something that's improving something mentally for me and challenging me, and it got me excited to go skiing and do something new. So I think all of us, it's really important to have certain things we want to work on. I've touched on the podcast a few times, maybe you want to work on carving on skis, carving on your Telemark skis, for instance. And so, you kind of set parameters on the slope, and you kind of work on medium, carving turns and large radius carving turns and short radius. Or maybe you're using trees as a way because you want to improve on speed of technique from turn to turn. All of these are things that I think are essential before opening day, to just kind of sit yourself down and say, hey, think back to last year, something that you saw that was cool. Maybe you saw another Telemark skier, maybe you saw a video online, something that was getting you inspired to try something different. Or, I think about that all the time. I'll see a Telemark skier do something, and I'm like thinking to myself, wow, I would really like to have that skill in my back pocket as well. And I think starting a new season, a great thing to do is start figuring out how to incorporate that into your own style. And it could be a style thing. It could be a technical thing. It could be a get rad and jump off of something thing. These are all, things that leading into opening day, I think are good. It's good to do it so you kind of know how to incrementally step up and get to know something. Another thing that kind of popped into my head with that's a little bit different from the technique side of it is maybe learning a different area of the mountain that you don't normally ski, and use that as, maybe there's a part of the mountain that you don't go to as often. And I'm thinking this is probably more typical for someone who lives in the West, maybe the East Coast too. Sometimes I think if you get into the Midwest, some of the smaller resorts, maybe this isn't the case as much. Maybe it could be though. So, but the idea of exploring a certain part of your mountain, getting to know why don't you go there as often, or have never gone there. I'll use the classic Alta example. Is I can think of, there's the obvious one, which is the main chute off of Baldy Mountain. People, that's sort of this iconic line. It's big. You've got to hike to it. It's not, depending on your skill level, I mean, that's definitely something that, it's something that you need to work up to. And those are the kinds of things, day one, yeah, you're not going to go do that day one, but breaking down what you want to work on that may help you achieve being able to go to a different section of the mountain. I can think of the high traverse at Alta as well. There's all sorts of different entrances to the backside off the high traverse, and they're all kind of unique and different, and they require different techniques. So these are the things I think number 2 essential, getting ready for opening day. Think about where you want to go. Think about the different techniques that are going to go into that, and start thinking about what you want to work on throughout the season, and how you can incorporate that into your free skiing so that you're you're not just, like I said, drilling, but these little drills are built in by going to different parts of the mountain, or giving yourself, hey, 1 or 2 runs I'm going to focus on this style of technique, because that's going to ultimately lead to, when I get to February, March, I want to be able to go ski this particular line. All right, so heading into number 3 essential before opening day. This is an absolute big one. Is you got to set a parameter for how hard you want to go day 1. And this is very specific to day 1. I was just talking about, setting goals, starting to think about what you want to work on for the season. But day 1, maybe you're not like me, but I'm the kind of guy who, I haven't skied all summer. I'm staying in shape. I'm getting ready. I'm doing my exercises, and I get to day 1, and I just like do pedal to the metal. And that's just not the way to go from a longevity standpoint. So I think, look, you best, and you need to make the decision about what's going to suit you well for having a great long season. So this is something, and I'm sure if you're a younger person, a younger telemark skier out there, you're probably listening to this and you're like, yeah, old dude, like, I'm going hard day 1. I'm going to get after it. I get it. And it's funny because having grown up in Utah, I mean, this time of year, I mean, if there was snow, right around now, Halloween, I think about being like a high school kid. It snows enough that I'm just ready to go, like, boom, snows. Okay, we're going skiing. And, it took me a lot of years to sort of evolve out of that. And I'm not saying, like, if there's not enough snow and you want to go hike and get some turns in, that's great. But the volume even as a young person, it's incredibly important with Telly. Just step it up as you go, because honestly, the best snow is January, February, March, and that's when it's filled in. So it's a lot of these essentials I'm talking about are to get you geared up for that early part of the season, so that you're fit and your body's fit and ready and can absorb even higher amounts of stress, and really getting after it by the time like January rolls around. So for me, setting that parameter day 1 it kind of ties into all this other stuff, what I want to work on. Day 1, I'm trying to keep that intensity level at sort of medium, honestly. There's no need to sort of like, spinal tap it and turn it to 11, like day 1, minute 1, here we go. I'm just going to get rad. And then you're just smashed, or like, you fatigue out and get injured or whatever. So yeah, I'm like half dial day 1. All I want to do is go cruise, really get the skis under my feet, start to feel my equipment again. Maybe start working on some of those things that I wrote down with my second essential. But really, I want to know ahead of time that when I get to the end of the day, I'm feeling a building block rather than I just completely smoked myself. And I feel like that, for me personally, that's my essential that I need to go to on day one. Is I want to come out feeling energized about going the next time, and not feeling like I have to just go get after it, because it's unlikely in most places that the snow's going to be so phenomenal that you just need to go super hard. And honestly, even when the snow is really good, early season snow, I'm always hesitant. There's rocks, there's logs underneath the snow. Like, these are all the things, like I found it less and less necessary to go hard early in the season, because it's going to be better later on if I use that time as more of a preparation period than more of just get after it, go, 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 go. And keeping that body healthy for the longest period of time possible over the winter, especially if you're going to be skiing a lot of days, is one of my super priorities. Okay, so number 4 thing before opening day, my fourth essential is get inspired by something new. And I think this is an ageless thing, whether you're young, middle-aged, older, whatever. I think it's incredibly important before you go out. I think we're all inspired by being in the mountains. We're all inspired by being on snow. But much like we've kind of gone through and, made a list of things we want to work on, kind of set some parameters for the level that we're going to go out and do this at, getting inspired by something new is incredibly important to me. And so, the things that I'm thinking about this year, I've talked a little bit about some of the trends that I thought I've seen kind of emerging out there. And one of them's been carving, for instance. So one of the things I think is really interesting about that is, it's not like carving, for instance, is new. It's obviously part of your technique, something that you learn hopefully to do as you become a more proficient telemark skier. But, there's, I had Mario Carr on here. We talked about sort of like this extreme carving, like where he's full on laid out, and kind of, literally parallel to the ground with his body. I think that's an extreme side of it. But I also I'm inspired by watching some of the telemark racers in Europe. I'll catch some videos here and there of that stuff. And like one great guy to watch on Instagram's Bastian Dyer. And, like to watch somebody do edge transitions and carve between gates the way that he does is absolutely phenomenal. And I highly recommend kind of looking at that. And so, that's one thing I'm inspired by this season is maybe putting some setups together that allow me to carve and kind of enjoy those hard pack days, or just utilizing my technique in a different way than maybe I normally would, and especially, I've got a little bit of a racing background, but, growing up in the West, I'm definitely like smearing out my turns a lot more. I'm not looking to achieve this nirvana of carving when I go out, generally speaking. I do like opening it up in the mornings, before people are on piste, and really that's it though, right? Like Telemark has like an incredible sense of surfiness, but sometimes people don't think about it in the carving sense. And I think if people understood this sense of carving on a hard pack, especially that early morning groomer before anybody gets on it, I mean, that's just such a fantastic moment to just really feel what it feels like to arc turns on Telemark skis. And so that's my fourth essential, is really trying to find something to get you inspired. Videos are great these days. I mean, I'm a video guy. I like watching YouTube videos or catch something on Instagram. I like the visual, and I think that's a real quick way for a lot of us to just go, that's interesting. I never thought about doing that. Or that's kind of a cool way to utilize that technique. Or, I'm inspired by how that person's equipment's set up and what's allowing them to do this, or whatever. But I think the bottom line is it's inspiring enough to be in the mountains, go on a cool ski trip, be outside with your friends. Those are inspiring as it is. But it's always nice to kind of have something to go to that next level and just go, I wonder if I could do this. And it's good to be inspired. It's good to have something new in the back of your brain that's just kind of, you're wondering, could I do this? And could I push myself to do this by slow, incremental change in the way that I'm doing my own ski technique? And this is all to help you be better Telemark skiers. And that's why I'm saying, like, this is one of those essentials before opening day for me. Is it's kind of just a great time of year to take stock of why I Telemark ski and how, why I enjoy it so much. And these are the little things that kind of help me, year after year after year, to feel constantly inspired, because, I'm trying to break it down into little pieces, and I'm trying to fine tune it, and I'm trying to find different ways to challenge myself. And I think that's, like I've said time and time again on the podcast, is Telemark is an endless world of perfecting very small things, and it's a craft. And these are all things that can help you before you get to day one of the season to help you improve your craft for yourself. And they're very personalized, but I think it's they're good guide points to kind of get the brain flowing a little bit before the season begins. All right, so that leads us into essential number 5. And this is really, we've gone through getting the boots squared away, making a list of things that you want to work on, setting parameters for how hard you want to go on day one, getting inspired by something new. And then this is a little more on the practical side of things, but this is where I do a full kit review. So I want to make sure that before day one, I've got everything put together. So we talked about boots. I mean, that's obviously a super, super important one for me, because I know that if my boots are in good operating order, everything else is going to, for the most part, the day is going to go well. But as far as kind of the reality of going through my full kit, I just wanted to kind of touch on some certain things that I like to do prior to going up day one, where everything's just kind of ready to go, and I've looked at it, so I'm not getting on the hill. I'm not getting put in a position where I'm like, oh no, this part I forgot broke in the spring or, whatever. So like I said, boots are covered. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's go over the rest of the hard goods. So skis, basically I'm going to do a full inventory on my ski. I'm going to go tip to tail on the bottom, much like I did with the boots. I always like to start on the bottom. I want to look at my bases. I want to look at my edges. I want to make sure they're waxed up and ready to go. I've, fixed anything that it isn't, is out of the ordinary. If I've got P-Tex torn off, from a rock I hit in the spring, I'm going to razor blade that off, all these little things that I'm going to do to kind of make sure the base is functional. No edges are blown out or anything like that. Especially on the tails, I'm always going to look at my tails, like, are they rusting out and peeling away, for instance, because I smash them in the parking lot too much after I ski, and, water got in there or whatever, then I'm going to go up each of the sidewalls and inspect all the sidewalls. Make sure nothing's cracked. If, sidewall or cab construction ski, whatever, you get the point. But the side of the ski, is there any damage? Is there any delamination going on? I want to make sure all of that's looking good. And then basically I'm going to, look at the top sheet. I mean, there's not really a ton that's going to be happening on the top sheet, but this is going to lead right into bindings. So bindings are really important to look at before you get to the hill. And there's the first thing I want to do is check all my screws, okay? And make sure you understand your bindings. Make sure that you know how you can access the screw pattern so that you can actually get in there and double check everything. The very, very first thing you want to look for is, are you seeing any rust color on the top of the screw? And the reason, if you see any rust dust kind of on the top of the screw, what's happened is you're probably starting to get water down in the hole. And for whatever reason, either something came loose, at our shop, we always use a 2-part epoxy mix to really get a solid seal into those screws, to hopefully prevent that from happening. But especially if you got older skis, stuff like that, if you start seeing that rust dust, I call it rust dust. It's just you kind of get that little rusty kind of powder. It'll start showing up. That's when you want to make sure, as you're checking the screws, make sure they're all solid. And if they're not, you want to try to remove maybe a screw. Maybe you do need to remount. The biggest thing is you want to make sure you've got solid screws in the toe piece of your binding. Obviously check the heel pieces as well. But especially on the toe piece, that's what's most dangerous. And, a lot of times water gets in there over the summer, sits in your garage or your gear room. And, next thing you know, you're up on the hill and, this thing's been rotting away, all summer long. So screws are a big one. Screw check always. If you're on a cable binding, best thing to do is make sure you're checking your cables. Make sure the cables aren't getting cut somewhere. Make sure that your cartridges are moving freely. If they're not, they might be seized up, which means they're rusted inside. So that's something to check. NTN skiers, same thing. Make sure you've got, good movability on your springs or your cartridges. And make sure that everything's just kind of in good working order. So watch for rust, make sure your screws are in correctly, and then fully check, tip to tail on your skis, kind of go through each thing. That's kind of the basics on the hard goods. That covers your boots, your skis, and your bindings. As far as the rest of your kit, make sure you're getting everything laid out. You've got helmet, you got goggles. Make sure you got all your layers correctly done. Make sure you look over, and make sure you didn't rip your pants, and need to do a repair on those. Those are all probably seemingly basic things, right? But this is going to take you an afternoon, it's going to take you a couple hours, go through all your equipment and just get it squared away, get it ready to go. And then you can put it in the corner and know, hey, opening day's coming and we're going to get all this, ready to go so we can just walk out the door and focus on the fun stuff. So I think that's kind of where I want to wrap up today. But just quick roundup again, getting boots squared away, a list of things I want to work on before the season. I always like to put that together. How hard am I going to go? Setting parameters for day one. I'm always looking to get inspired by something new for the upcoming season. And then I'm going to do a full kit review, top to bottom, and make sure all my gear's safe and in working order. And these are 5 essentials that I think are incredibly important to do before opening day. Spend some time with your gear, get to know it better. I feel like being a great Telemark skier is also understanding your gear and how it works and the mechanics of it. And, it just makes you a better mountain person all around, is just being able to identify what's going on with all your equipment. So, really appreciate you guys listening today. It was fun. I'm getting ready for the season, obviously, which is why I wanted to do this episode. And I can't wait to kind of put it all together. And hopefully we'll start seeing some photos of everyone up on the hill here. I know Colorado's been open, so I'm kind of ignoring you guys because I know you're there. I know the ribbon of death is going on. So, I think this is usually November is usually when kind of things start kicking off and people are actually getting out more often than not. So hopefully this was helpful and kind of got your wheels turning a little bit about the opening season and what's going on. And I'll be back next week with another episode and can't wait to talk to you guys again. And I'm excited for it to snow some more, hopefully. So fingers crossed. Until then, you can always sign up for the mailing list. The link is in the show notes. That's a great way to stay in touch with everyone working at the Freeheel Life shop. You can also get all your articles, gear reviews, and more over at telemarkskier.com. Craig Dossey's been doing a great job over there. And you can always email me, podcast@freeheellife.com. Thanks for listening. If you have a second and you're an Apple listener, take a second to rate and review the podcast. Helps get in front of some more people. And we always want to be able to share Telemark with as many people as possible. So until next week, my friends, be well, have fun, pray for snow, and spread Telemark always.